Hello and welcome back to our podcast series this February on love beyond romance. Inspired by First Corinthians chapter 13 verse 13, which says, "And now these three remain: faith, hope, and love. But the greatest of these is love." Now, in the last episode, we talked about how love is more than romance. Today, we're talking about love in action, compassion over sentiments. And we're taking it a step further by exploring how love becomes tangible through compassion. Now, compassion is love in action. It's the willingness to move beyond words or feelings and meet the needs of others. Let's dive into what it means to live a life of compassion and how Jesus is the perfect example of this kind of love. My name is Johnson Kibali. Welcome to T.U.G Podcast. First, let's begin by looking at cultural love versus biblical compassion. Let's start with how the world views love and compassion. Many people think of love as feeling, an emotion we experience when we care deeply for someone. Compassion, similarly, is often seen as pity or sympathy, but biblical compassion is so much more than just a feeling. In Matthew chapter 25 verse 40, Jesus says, "Whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me." In other words, true compassion requires action. It's not enough to just feel sorry for someone. We are called to step in and help. Think about how Jesus modeled this. When he saw the hungry, he didn't just feel bad for them. He fed them. When he saw the sick, he healed them as well. Jesus' compassion wasn't passive. It moved him to act. Let your compassion move you to action. And what are the examples of compassion in the Bible? One of my favorite stories of compassion in the Bible is the parable of the Good Samaritan in Luke chapter 10, 25 to 37. And let's go through it briefly. In the story, a man is beaten, robbed, and left for the dead on the side of the road. A priest and a Levite, both religious men, see him but pass by on the other side. But then a Samaritan, someone from a group despised by the Jews, comes along. He doesn't just stop to check on the man, he bandages his wounds, takes him to an inn, and pays for his care. This is what biblical compassion looks like. It's inconvenient. It costs us something, our time, our resources, or even our comfort. But it's also transformative. The Samaritan's actions didn't just save the man's life. They modeled what it means to love your neighbor as yourself. My question for you would be, are you ready to show compassion even when it's going to cost you inconvenience or take your time? Think about that for a minute. I would like to also know whether you have ever practiced compassion and how it was like for you. So therefore, comment down below and let me know whether you have ever practiced compassion. Now, let's look at how to show compassion during this month of February when we are expressing love. So, how can we show this kind of compassion in our own lives? Here are 3 practical steps to take this February. First, start small. Look around you. Is there someone in your life who's struggling? Maybe it's a coworker going through a tough time, or a neighbor who's feeling isolated or lonely, or a family, friend, brother, or a sister. Just reach out, offer a listening ear or a helping hand. You might not know how helpful that can be. All right. Number 2, be intentional. Compassion doesn't happen by accident. Schedule time to volunteer, help, donate to a cause, or write a note of encouragement to someone who needs it, either through a text message or just send them a card. Most importantly, being there in person is more impactful, and that's what I would advocate for. Number 3, pray for a compassionate heart. Sometimes we struggle with compassion because we're too busy or too focused on ourselves. Ask God to help you see people the way He does, with love and empathy. That way, you will be able to show compassion and not say, I don't have time. Right. Finally, compassion is love in action. It's what turns our faith into something tangible and impactful. As you go through this week, I encourage you or challenge you to take one step towards living a more compassionate life. Remember the words of Jesus in John chapter 13, verse 34. A new commandment I give you. Love one another as I have loved you. So you must love one another. Thank you so much for tuning in and for spending time with me. If this message inspired you, share with someone, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to T.U.G Podcast. Be on the lookout for our next episode, which we will be focusing on faith, hope, and love, the foundation of lasting relationships. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Johnson Kibali. See you next time on T.U.G Podcast.